So I just finished Welcome to Derry, and definitely a lot to unpack in this show. I'm actually surprised how much I enjoyed this show because when I first heard that there was a TV show that was a prequel to the 2017 film, I was like, I don't really understand like what that really could like what the point of that is because the first film and the second film pretty much finish the story. Like the second film, they defeat it and the losers win. Story over. So I really didn't know like what they could really explore in a prequel that hadn't been explored in the films. But to the show's credit, I think it actually kind of justifies by and large actually existing as a show. And it actually does give some pretty good like backstory to Darien, and we also get to learn about the backstories of some characters that we get to see later on in the It series. Like we get to see Richie's mom in this show, Marge, which is kind of interesting because in the movies, I don't think we see her at all, and in this show, she's like a main character. And then we get to see Mike's grandfather, who is an airman in this show. And it's actually interesting, like the contrast of his character. Now, it's been a while since I saw a 2017 film, but I remember him in the film being pretty like cynical, pretty bitter, pretty mean, pretty fucking blunt, and in the show, he's like pretty positive, altruistic, hopeful, optimistic, encouraging, loving father, loving husband. Now, I mean, obviously, things can happen over time, but it's just kind of interesting the contrast on like the character in this show and then how he is in the film. Although it is kind of funny because I didn't think about this at first, but his wife, who's a main character or at least like a supporting character in the show, she's not in the film. So I imagine she dies in between the show and the film. And I mean, I could see how that could probably cause him to be pretty fucking depressed because and so another thing is his son who's in the show, his name I forgot, in the film and in the book, he dies and that's why Mike ends up having to be taken care of from him. So assuming his wife is dead, he lost his wife and he lost his son, and now he has to take care of his grandson by himself in a life that he didn't really want because it was actually his wife who wanted to stay and be there, and then now she's gone and now his son's gone and now he's just stuck there. So it's kind of interesting just seeing that you know difference of how he is in the film and how he's in the show. Like I kind of like that. And we also got to see Marge, who we really don't see anything of in the film. So it was kind of cool like seeing different characters at like different times from the actual like main film. And then we also get some crossover characters. We get Dick Halloran from The Shining, and this is like decades before The Shining takes place. So that's kind of interesting because with Dick Halloran, I don't know. I'm assuming that this Dick Halloran is the one we see in the Kubrick Shining film, because I read an interview with the actor who he was like saying like about the contrast between the young Dick in this show and then like the more mature Dick in the Kubrick film. And there's a few other kind of hints that imply that it's the Kubrick Dick. But and it's kind of interesting because we don't really have like a current, like a modern shining canon, kind of like how we have with the 2017 It film. So I'm assuming this is the Kubrick canon Dick, which is kind of interesting. So that means that we have Stanley Kubrick crossover with Welcome to Derry, which I would not have expected either. But I kind of liked it. I liked seeing a different version of Dick from the one we see in The Shining, because kind of like Mike's grandfather, like the Dick we see in the Shining movie and the Dick we see in this show are very different people. But you get to see like you can see how throughout the show, how the Dick in Derry ends up kind of becoming the Dick we see in The Shining. And honestly, I think that's one of the things that the show does well is that it kind of gives you a good idea of how characters that we see later on, how they end up becoming how they do. Like it doesn't just kind of show you like how this character got a fucking iconic cloth or an iconic piece of clothing or like an iconic catchphrase. Like the show actually does spend time into like developing characters and like learning about their backstories and like kind of giving like some substance to like the backstory that we may not have known before. So I do like how the show actually gave a lot more to like develop characters, like develop relationships. So like it kind of gives some context. Like you can look at the first It film and kind of have some interesting like, knowledge now. It kind of reminds me to me like a good like to me I think the best standard for prequels is Red Dead Redemption 2. I honestly feel like that game is like that should be the blueprint for a prequel or any type of like origin story. And in Red Dead Redemption 2, it enhances and it builds and it supplements the world building. Like you play Red Dead after playing Red Dead Redemption 2, and the world building is so much enriched from playing that game. Like there's so much that's more meaningful. Like the interactions are more meaningful, characters are more meaningful, dialogue is more meaningful, events are more meaningful, relationships are more meaningful. And then Derry, it does that pretty well of like developing characters and developing their arcs into what we end up seeing them as, which I really like that. Now, the one thing I felt the show kind of struggled with is it has a lot of shit going on. Like you have so many plots and then subplots going on. Like you have the military plot, then you have the kids doing their adventure, and then you have flashbacks to points in the past with current characters. Then you have the police and their investigation. Then you have like the side plot of segregation and racial discrimination. And then you have other side plots of romances and shit like that. Like there is a lot of stuff that the show is trying to juggle, and I feel like it doesn't really do it well a lot of times because it doesn't have enough time to like spin on a lot of different subplots. Like there's the subplot with Marge wanting to be with the popular girls and like that kind of causing like a rift between her and Lily. And I mean, yeah, that subplot kind of gets advanced, but like you have that subplot, but like you can't really spend a whole lot of time on it because you have two other plots of Lily that you got to focus on. But then also you got Dick Halloran, you got to focus on his story and establishing him. And then you also got, Mike's grandfather and like him and his best friend and them and their military project. So like there's so many subplots and so many main plots going on that it's hard to keep up with what's going on. And like it kind of makes it to where as much as like it does develop like specific characters, it doesn't develop like a lot of the general characters like Lily. Like I pretty much like the original characters in the series. Some of them really don't get like a lot of development or a lot of like substance to go, to kind of go off of because they just, we don't have a time. Like they just keep going back and forth between we got 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. So like I felt like the show would have been a lot better if it kind of like focused more on like specific plots and just kind of kept going because like you kind of got whiplash at some points from like how we come like we end an episode on a cliffhanger, but then we spend the next like 15 minutes in a like a flashback from like 50 years ago. Then we flash back to like a random point that's different from the cliffhanger. So like I feel like the show could have handled having fewer like plots and focusing on just like a handful of them and like kind of focusing more on a specific group of characters because like there really isn't a main character, and I wouldn't even say there's like a main cast because like each episode kind of focuses on different characters. Like I don't think there's really a character or characters that really are prominently featured in every episode. Like I think there's at least a episode a piece that a character either isn't like a part of, isn't really involved in. So it's really an ensemble cast, but it's kind of a pretty unfocused like ensemble cast. Like there isn't a lot of cohesion with it. And so like I felt like when it came to like Pennywise when he came in, like there was so much going on that like you couldn't really get too much of Pennywise because you had these other plots that you had to focus on. And then also when you had Pennywise, well then you had like subplots of Pennywise you had to focus on. So it was just like, God damn man, like we can kind of cut down on that. But when it comes to Pennywise, it's kind of interesting because he actually doesn't show up in the show until halfway through almost. I think it's like the fifth or sixth episode he shows up. And honestly, I kinda like that. Like I like that the show didn't have Pennywise directly shown. Like I like how the first half of the show is pretty much the influence of Pennywise. Like I really like how they kind of showed like how like indirectly he like its influence on the city or on the town and the people and how they behave and their reactions and how they respond to things and like their indifference to cruelty and like their just kind of their like tendency to violent nature and violent tendencies, like it kind of shows like his influence on that, and I kind of liked it. Like I kind of like how it showed like more of the indirect influence of Pennywise opposed to just like showing him. But like when we do get to see Pennywise, maybe it's just me, but I kept hearing all this hype from like Skarsgård and all these other people about like how Pennywise was just so like on another level, and Skarsgård got to do all these different crazy things as Pennywise, and this show that he wasn't able to do in the films. And honestly, I mean, I don't really think Pennywise did anything more crazy in this show than he did in the first film. I mean, in the first film, he fucking rips off Georgie's arm and then drags him into the sewer. Like, I think that's more crazy than most of the shit that Pennywise does in the show. And then also, there's the fact that like we don't really we get a bit of Pennywise, but it's like in small doses. Like there's a lot of teasing of like, oh, Pennywise is going to show up this time, or oh, there goes Pennywise, or that might be Pennywise. There's more of a tease of Pennywise than there actually is of Pennywise. So like we really don't get a lot of him. So like I don't really think that this Pennywise is like exceptionally unhinged or more like terrifying or scary. Like there's not really a lot of them to kind of go off of, and also like he just like I think the shit he did in the first film is on par with any of the stuff he did in this show. And then also, we get kind of an origin of like how it adopted the Pennywise persona. Now, again, I'm not really that well versed with the it lore, so I don't really know how all this shit like kind of came to be. But essentially, at least in this canon, because Stephen King apparently he didn't write like a backstory or origin for it, which makes sense because it's supposed to be like a Lovecraftian cosmic horror eldritch entity. It's like it's not supposed to be something that you can comprehend or something that you should like really have like a detailed backstory for. So I think that it made sense that like Stephen King didn't have a backstory, but they kind of at least they didn't give really, I'd say, an origin to it itself. More so as like how it adopted the Pennywise persona, which is essentially it found a clown that had like kind of touring attractions where kids would come and play and dance, and it realized that clowns attract children and children is what it feeds on. It was like, oh shit, well I guess I'm gonna eat you and take over your persona. So essentially it like kind of just became, I guess, like a skinwalker almost, or would it be a skinwalker? I guess so. Like it just like skinwalker the fucking clown from the like 1800s, and that's how. it got its Pennywise persona. And then we also find out that the clown that Pennywise assimilated had a daughter. Now, this plot kind of was fucking weird to me because so there's this white lady, and that's an important emphasis on that. There's a white lady who is actually involved in two plots. She's involved in the plot with the black guy who is being accused of killing the kids that were missing, and she's involved in Pennywise. And she essentially was the clown's uh daughter. Now I don't. So this is what I don't understand. So the it entity consumed her dad when she was like she seemed to be like she looked like 11, 12ish. So she was like old enough to know her dad, like to really know who he is. So I'm not really sure, like, how do you like not know that like your dad, who is just like a dude in clown makeup who just did this for fun and just did as a job, kind of a grumpy old man. How do you not notice that your dad went from that to this like interdimensional flesh eating monster that like feeds on humans and like goes into a fucking coma for like 2 decades? I don't know. Like, it was just kind of like how the fuck like she doesn't realize until after Pennywise, after she's like drawn him out, she's like, oh shit, you're not my dad. I'm like, how the fuck did you think he was your dad to begin with? Like, I didn't understand, like, that whole subplot of like Pennywise the clown and her dot and his daughter. I mean, the daughter does play into the It film. We find out that she's actually a kind of interestingly semi important character that we see in the movie, the first movie. But yeah, that was kind of interesting. And then so she's also involved in the plot line of the black guy that was accused of killing the kids. And it's kind of interesting because she is essentially having an affair with him. And the black guy, when he's being questioned by the wife of the airman, about like where he was at the when the kids went missing. He's like, "Well, I was with a white woman," and he was like, "Yeah, like if they find out that like I was with a white woman, then that's it. Like I'm fucking cooked." And it's like, man, it's kind of crazy that like at this point in time in history, like you would be like you would essentially be killed by a lynch mob for having a consensual relationship with a white woman, opposed to being charged with legit killing and butchering children. Like, you are more willing to get a trial and more of like an actual hearing and due process from being charged and believed to have killed kids than just fucking a white chick who had consensual sex. Like, that's kind of a wild fucking thing to kind of think about there. But yeah, the Pennywise daughter, that whole plot line, that was surprising to like see there because I did not expect that. But I actually kind of thought it was kind of interesting. I do think that one thing about the show that was kind of revealed at the end that I kind of made me, I don't know, apprehensive. So, like, essentially, they are going to make 3 seasons. So, the director Andy Machete, he has a 3 season plan, and it seems like each season is going to explore a specific point in Derry's history, kind of like how this show did. And it seems like it's implied that because what this show kind of reveals is that Pennywise sees time in like a non-linear way. So it knows that it's going to die or get killed in the future. And essentially it's like trying to prevent itself from being defeated in the future. and so that's why it's like back in time now, and it's heavily implied that when Pennywise is defeated in this time, it's going to go to another time and try to defeat or try to kill those kids or that group of characters. And honestly, I don't really see the viability in that, because I like this season worked. Like I feel like this season was was interesting and was good. Like it gave some backstory to Derry. It explored some characters that have already been established. It gave some more, kind of supplement to the lore of the films. Like I think it was like a pretty net positive to like kind of add to to the universe or the it franchise. But I don't like, I mean, it just seems like this is going to be a fucking exhausting cycle. So like we're going to have two seasons of Pennywise going back in time, being defeated, and then going back in time and then being defeated, and then I guess at the end of that, like go back in the I don't know, like at that point just go forward in the future and try to like somehow preemptively stop itself from getting defeated. I don't know. Like I just don't know, because like the problem is I don't know how you can really keep making more seasons that have the same type of investment and the same type of stakes that this show did. Because like as much as like this show had like characters that like couldn't die, like Nick Calleran or like Marge or like Mike's grandfather, there were a lot of characters that like were kind of like up for grabs. Like, that characters like you could like, see being killed, or characters you didn't know if they were gonna make it. But like if you go back to like another time, it's like, well, we know that like all the characters are gonna die or lose, or they're gonna like leave Derry and forget about everything that happened, and then and essentially gonna be like nothing happened. And then we know that Pennywise can't be defeated for like actually killed until the films. So it's like we know that it can't die. The characters that it is fighting or trying to kill, it either will kill or they'll just beat it and it'll come back again. I'm like, man, I don't know. That just doesn't really seem like an interesting two season, especially with like each episode being an hour plus long. Like, I'm gonna need a lot more than just like a rinse and repeat of this season for two more seasons, because that's what it seems like. I read an interview where Andy Machete and one of the other creators of the show was saying how like they're essentially trying to like fill in every possible gap, like every event in the it like lore from like Derry can be filled. Like they're essentially trying to make like a complete like story from like start to finish of Derry. And honestly, it's just like we don't need that. Like again, the two films wrapped up the show, or not wrapped up the show, wrapped up the story good, and then the show did a good job of ending, how it did, and then kind of adding to the films. So like I feel like the show was good and doing its job, and it added to the films. But I don't know, with like adding more like more seasons, I don't really know, like I just don't really see the viability in it, because like I said, like the story, we know how it's defeated, and any characters that are introduced that are new characters, people aren't going to really care about, because we're like, well, they're gonna die, or they're just gonna leave or something. Well, like it's not going to really matter what happens to them. But I am kind of like curious of like this whole like Pennywise and time travel, because like it seems like, because I've read like weird things about this. So some people have said that Pennywise sees time in a way that like it can comprehend, but it can't like direct, like it can see it but it can't act on it. But I'm like, well, clearly it can, like it knows enough that like it knows specifically like specific events. Like it knows that Marge's kid Richie is going to be one of the kids that kills it. Like it does like it's pretty aware of like specific events with specific people and like specific characters involved. Like it definitely can see time in a very specific, detailed, realized way. So it's just like, okay, how come it just doesn't like go back and then use the deadlights and then just kill whatever character? Like if it's trying to stop itself from being defeated, I don't know why it just wouldn't go to whichever character it needs to, use the deadlights, eat them, and that's it. Like you win. Like you make it to where those characters aren't even, the people that kill you don't even exist, so you don't have to worry about ever having to be killed again. Or or if you do, you can like see in the future and then prevent that from happening. However, like whatever that course may be. Like I feel like the whole time travel thing that I was like, yeah, that I don't know. I feel like that just shouldn't have been a thing. Like I think it would have been better if this was just a prequel where Pennywise was having, fighting this group of kids and it had the military plot. Like I feel like it would just been better if like that was it, and like that was the whole story. Like instead of it like being Pennywise is like seeing the future or coming from the future or going back in the past. Because I mean, time travel stories in general, like no matter how well you write them, there's always some fuck plot. There's always some fuck plot holes or fucking shit you don't account for, or like some fucking paradox that doesn't make sense. And I'm like, I don't know, like I felt like the whole time travel part could have definitely been just taken out. Like that was like, man, you're making this way more complicated than it needs to. Like this story could have been a lot more simplified. And I think a lot more better without adding all this time travel shit. Just keep it set to this like specific time in Derry and Pennywise dealing with these specific characters and and being involved in these specific events, and then that's it. Like I would much rather that than having the whole time travel, plot involved. But then again, like also another plot that could have been completely removed was the whole military plot line, because that plot line was the most generic, straight out of a fucking Jurassic Park film logic idea. Like the whole plan of the military is we're gonna release this like ancient cosmic eldritch interdimensional entity to essentially frighten the entire world into world peace. So like we're gonna weaponize the fear of this thing to like control the masses and like prevent war and like pretty much like make world peace. It's like, dude, that is the most fucking stupid idea possible. Like, and it's like a plot line straight out of like one of the new Jurassic Park films, where like they make some insanely god tier built genetic freak dinosaur, and then they're like fucking shocked that the thing like goes haywire and fucking goes crazy and like starts killing shit. And they're like, oh my god, we can't control it. It's like, yeah, no shit. Like it's like like yeah, your guys' plan is fucked. Like this is not like a legit plan. Like this is a fucking Jurassic Park level logic plan. I was like, this could be completely cut. Like that was one plot line that like at first I was interested. Like I was kind of in kind of invested in it because I was like they were kind of like talking about this weapon and I was like, man, I wonder like what they're like what kind of weapon are they talking about? Like how they're gonna use it. Like I was kind of interested in like what their plan was, like what they were going to use it for, how they were going to use it, like why they know about it, how they know about it, what the plan is. But then when they like explain what the whole goal is, I'm like, that is the stupidest fucking thing possible. Like of all the things you could do, you're just going to let this like fucking cosmic fucking like demon entity out into the world and free it from being trapped and just assume it's going to like not just fucking kill all the people it wants to. Like, yeah, like that's not a fucking plan. Like it's just like the most generic military bad has bad fucking plot line possible. So yeah, that whole plot line could have been completely cut. But honestly, if they're gonna do a season two, honestly, I would like for Lily to come back. I really like Lily as like a main character in this show, and if they're gonna like keep making more seasons, I'd like for her to be involved in it because also she's like the only character that I'm aware of. Like I looked her up, and it doesn't seem like she's involved with like any like it lore. So like I don't know if she was just made up for this show. Like I don't know if she's like a pre-established character, but as far as I can tell, she has like no connection to like any character. She's not like the mom of someone or grandmother. So she's pretty much like a open sandbox. Like you can do anything with her. Like she can die, she can live, she can leave. Like you have pretty much anything you want to do with Lily. And I think there's still like a lot she can do, like especially with like all the trauma she dealt with in this season, then like having to deal with the loss of her friends, dealing with her own trauma, dealing with the fucking public fucking backlash, dealing with being fucking outcast by her fucking family. Like I feel like there's a lot you can explore for second season with Lily. So I do hope she comes back. And I will say, also, like as much as I said, like I don't think that this version of Pennywise was not like overly impressive. Skarsgård as Pennywise is fucking phenomenal. Like when he did show up, most of the time I enjoyed him. Like there were very few scenes where Pennywise was not fun, enjoyable, fucking terrifying. Like he was always fun when he came on. So I did enjoy that, what little we did have. But Skarsgård absolutely fucking killed again as Pennywise. But yeah, Derry, overall, I enjoyed it. I felt like it could have been a bit shorter and it could have had a fewer, less plot lines. Like, it could have had like two or three fewer plot lines, half as less characters, and a more focused plot. And honestly, with like a more like centered cast, honestly, it would have been a whole lot better. I mean, it's still good as it is, but it would have been, I think, a whole lot better if it was like a lot more just fucking trimmed down, like a whole lot more fucking fat cut off of it. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Derry. Let me know if you guys like the show, if you've seen the show, and what you guys think of it. Um, but other than that, until next time, I will see you good people later.